Yes, we are live. Hey, Rinkesh, hi. How's you doing?
Hello. Hi, Saurabh. I'm all good. I'm good. What's up with you?
Nothing, bro. I think we're here collaboratively to conduct a session around basics of blockchain. We'll take few minutes. 8 people joined in. I think the
Mhm.
reminders are set to go now. So let's
Mhm.
wait for a few minutes. And how was your day, bro? How was your day?
All good, man. All good, man. Everything's going very fine. Very good. Friday evening, probably weekend settling in.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wonderful. So the agenda is very simple, right? I think less amount of people will be showing up, but Uncryptd just kick started. I'll definitely give a glimpse about what Uncryptd is and how we collaborate with them.
Mhm.
But for me, it's really a passionate sort of an initiative because our vision is to definitely do actions around awareness and education on Web3. And what Robin and his team also came up with is very similar. But one thing that excites me as a consumer is that I'll be incentivized for the process. I'll be incentivized for learning. So
Right.
that is one quick thing that I enjoy, to be honest. But I think more importantly, before getting into task, before getting into any of the further things,
Mhm.
the very important aspect of it is people should be brushed up with the basic concepts of blockchain. And that's why we've just
Right.
planned this kind of a series as an education partner where we're starting with blockchain basics. We're moving towards introduction to Ethereum. Then we'll be talking about Polygon in next week, and we'll be hosting Uncryptd team the same week as well. So I think without further ado, I think we'll quickly take a deep dive and quickly just have this bit formally that Rinkesh is one of the lead instructor, the only one lead instructor with us at Blockchain School who collaborated with us and now is exploring more than collaboration. I think so far in live experience, we've taught more than around 300-400 students in past few months, right? And
Yeah.
with similar mindset, we all have came together collaboratively. But to give a glimpse, right? I think the initiative for which we have collaborated, it's called Uncryptd, a very interesting keyword. So Uncryptd has taken this initiative to launch an incentivized learning platform to bridge up the gap between Web3 and Web2, and to provide an easy, understandable way for beginners to onboard onto Web3 space. And this is a very core challenge, right? A lot of new people wants to get into the ecosystem, but the only core challenge that they face is how to get started, right? Uh, People are joining us for this special class titled Getting Started with Blockchain Basics, featuring my colleague Rinkesh Gorasia, who is a lead instructor and mentor at Blockchain School. And Rinkesh, I think formally welcoming you to this special class. You're the first person
Thank
to take this. And I
Yes.
think over to you, man. I think what excites me is the first slide itself that gonna say welcome to the future. Can we get there and just get started?
Sure thing. Yes. Cool. So yeah. Hello, folks. This is Rinkesh here. We're gonna. Before we get into all the teaching part and everything, just wanna. Uh, Sort of, I'm able to hear myself back. Uh,
Yes. Okay. I'll quickly mute.
yeah. Cool. The agenda for the day is we'll try to learn what blockchain is. Okay, probably from the very fundamental aspect, how exactly blockchain works, what exactly blockchain means, why do we really need something like a blockchain on the fundamental level, and and to put things into perspective, we'll try to learn everything without any jargons, without any technical stuff. Okay, something which we like to do at blockchain school. We know that blockchain is a very exciting new technology, but most people tend to get confused over the period of time that okay, what exactly is going, what is this and what is that and everything. So we try to dumb it down as much as possible, try to do this particular part where we actually help you understand what blockchain is and how exactly it actually gonna be the future probably. Okay, and see how exactly it's gonna work out. Okay, so let's get started. Saurabh, shall we?
Yes, let's get started.
Cool. I'm gonna this is unlike the other sessions I used to take, probably on Zoom sessions where I have 50, 60 odd number of people interacting with me. Okay, but make sure, folks, you are actually interacting with me. If you have any questions, if you have any queries, if you have anything to ask, okay, put them in the chat section. Let me know how excited are you for the session. Okay, going. I can see the chat section down here. I can see Sanket. I can see Ayush. I can see a few folks I'm already familiar with. Okay, so yeah, let's get started and learn blockchain jargon free.
Wonderful. One quick thing that I love to add is, guys, keep posting your questions here. We'll try out to find the time and pick those questions, or maybe we'll bring them in the end. But we'll definitely value the live audience. So please keep shooting your questions. Hey, the Captain Saurabh. Cheers. Rinkesh, there you go.
Yes, yes, yes. Cool, cool. Is my screen visible?
Now it is.
Is it visible? Are you sure?
Yes, it is visible. Guys, can you
Okay,
write
okay.
in chat if it's visible? Can we see
Yes.
welcome to the future?
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so the very first slide or the very first introduction, it says that welcome to the future. Okay, and probably this is the trademark hallmark thing which we like to do at blockchain school, because blockchain is the future. Probably I'll say that not just only future now, it's already we are living into. Okay, and let's see what this future is gonna unfold, what exactly this future is gonna look like, and how exactly this future is gonna be paving the new kind of a world we're going to live in. Okay, so we'll try to start with a very simple example. I'll try to dumb it down and try to make it very easy, relatively making you understand how things are there. So I'll try to keep posting certain questions or asking certain questions to you. If there are people in the chat, okay, let me know what do you think of those. Okay, and we'll try to see. Okay, so let's start with a very let's start with a very similar kind of a state. Okay, there's a state where this boy is sending money to this girl. Okay, and there is another scenario where that same boy is sending this particular girl a movie. Now in these two states we know that the boy is sending something to the girl. Okay, but there's a very fundamental difference between both of these particular scenarios. Okay, when that boy is sending in the state one 100 rupees to this girl, okay, the kind of nature of that sending of that money is a lot more different when you are actually sending a Harry Potter movie, a document, or something like that. Okay, so can anybody tell me in the chat, if there is anyone, that what exactly could be a fundamental difference between these two scenarios in the state one? Can anybody tell me? Anyone?
Rinkesh, don't
Anyone?
worry. I'll read out for you if
Sure
anyone
thing.
just
Sure thing.
puts in.
Okay, okay, okay. So let's see into this particular part. Okay, let's try to see into the further part of what happens or what exactly the state we're going to move in. So this particular first state is where a boy has 100 rupees, and in the next scenario the boy has Harry Potter movie. In both of the both of the case, the boy is sending it to the girl. Okay, but now let's see what's the fundamental difference or what exactly happens when this particular thing is given to that girl. Okay, so now in this state 2, when we move from state 1 to state 2, this boy now has 0 rupees. Okay, and the girl has 100 rupees. But in the second scenario, you could see the boy still has the Harry Potter movie, and the girl now also has a Harry Potter movie. Okay, so if you compare the first state where the boy had 100 and the girl had 0, now the girl has 100 and the boy has 0. That means that boy does not have any more money, okay, with him. He has given that to the girl. But in the second scenario, when we compare, first the girl didn't have any movie. Okay, but in the second case, the Harry Potter movie are with the both of the parties right now, with the boy and with the girl. Okay, so there's a very fundamental difference why this particular transfer of asset or transfer of something which is happening digitally, which is happening online. Okay, remember we are talking about an online transfer here, or online sharing of assets or files or money or anything. Okay, so now when we talk about something like money, okay, it's always when you're sending something, you do not have that hold of it anymore. You give it to the person, okay, so you do not have that anymore. But when it comes to something like movies, document, image, music, you have that copy with yourself, but the other person at the receiving end also has another copy of it. Okay, so the very fundamental difference between these two scenarios are that when you're sending money from one person to another, it's actually fundamentally called transfer. There's a transfer of asset, there's a transfer of ownership, there's a transfer of 100 rupees to one person to another. So 100 rupees which was owned, or which was actually owned by that particular boy, is now actually transferred and now owned by that girl. So that boy cannot spend that 100 rupees anymore because he does not have that. The girl has now that 100 rupees. Okay, but in the second scenario, when we consider, the Harry Potter movie is copied. Okay, it's not being transferred from one person or one entity to another entity. Okay, so in this particular case, the movie, the document, the file, the music, whatever you're transferring, okay, unless and until it's not a money, unless and until it's not a unique proposition asset or something like that, okay, it will be copied. Okay, so in the online digital world, okay, how do we make sure that the when we are transferring something like money, we are not actually copying, but we are actually transferring? This is a very huge problem. Okay, it might look very trivial, that how do you make sure that when I am sending 100 rupees from my account to Saurabh's account, I do not have that 100 rupees anymore? How do we make sure that? Okay, because it happens with every other thing. If I'm sharing a music, if I'm sharing a movie or anything to Saurabh, okay, I will still have that movie with me. I'll still have that particular entity with me. Okay, so this particular difference between transfer and copy is a very huge difference in the online world. And this particular difference, or this particular line between what needs to be transferred, what needs to be copied, okay, especially when we are dealing with money or when we are dealing with assets, okay, is very very fundamentally important. Okay, let's try to see why exactly this is important. Okay, so suppose, what if this particular situation where the boy has 100 rupees, he's sending it to the girl. Okay, now what if this particular thing happens where the after the transfer, after sending that 100 rupees, the 100 rupees is still with the boy, and the 100 rupees is still with, and now the 100 rupees is with the girl as well. Okay, now that girl has haven't received that particular 100 rupees from anyone else, she has received it from that boy itself. Okay, and we all know that this cannot happen. If this would have been possible, okay, we all would have been millionaires and we all would have been had tons of money with us. Okay, there would have been no reason not to do that. Okay, but doing this or preventing that this should not happen, okay, is a very very huge technological challenge for us. Okay, and there is a way how we have actually solved this particular problem. Okay, we'll discuss how exactly this particular whole transfer of money actually happens. Okay, how exactly this whole process that a particular person is when sending or transferring the money, it's deducted from one's account, credited to another's account. There's something fundamentally we all know, something very basic. Okay, but how exactly all this happens behind the curtain? We all know that, okay, send a when I send 100 rupees from my Paytm or my Phone Pay or my Google Pay, 100 rupees is going to be debited from my account, 100 rupees is going to be credited to Saurabh's account. Okay, but we haven't actually, we really do not know how exactly these things works in the background. Okay, so let's try to see the background, try to remove those curtains and see how exactly these particular concepts actually work in the background. Okay, so what actually happens is that to maintain this transparency, to remove this part where actually that particular 100 rupees is transferred and not being there with that original person as that boy. Okay, we introduce something called as banks. Okay, now these banks basically act as a middleman. These banks act as a third party. What do the banks is? dude, you say, you basically keep your money with us, we will manage, we'll take care of the all the transfer, send, receiving requests and everything. Okay. And everyone in the world, or everyone in our nation, is basically connected to one particular each and every bank. Okay. And via these banks we makes our transfer. Okay. So when 100 rupees is being transferred to that girl, what actually happens is bank manages that particular account, and the bank basically deducts 100 rupees from boy's account, adds 100 rupees to girl's account, and does all this management thing. Okay. And there are tons of banks, we all know. Okay. So there's a third party now included in the part. Now this third party is included and needed only and only when you're actually doing online transaction. Okay. Remember, when you're actually doing a offline transaction, okay, let's say me and Saurabh are at a park, okay, and I am actually, and he is actually wanting 100 rupees, okay, from me. I can just pull out my wallet, take 100 rupees out of it and give it to him. I do not need a third party, I do not need a bank, I do not need a person to actually facilitate that transaction, I do not need someone else to do that. Okay. This is generally conventionally called as a handshake mechanism. Okay. That in the physical world, how we can actually do it. So the transfer in the physical world happen without any intermediaries, without any banks, without any third parties, without any middlemen. Okay. But in the online world, the necessity to have a middleman, okay, is very, very growing. Okay. It's growing day by day, every period. Okay. So let's see how exactly, first of all, this middleman works. Okay. We all know what banks are, we all know how bank works, we probably almost everyone have a bank account here also. Okay. But there are fundamentally problems with how exactly a bank manages money, how exactly bank works. But let's see first how exactly a bank works, what exactly the work of bank is. Then we'll come on to the problems as well, and then we'll come on to the solution as well, that how those problems can be addressed. Okay. So let's see first how exactly, or what exactly a bank does. Okay. So what bank does really is that whenever someone makes a request, let's say I opened my phone pay, I went to the account, and I initiated a transaction of 100 rupees to Saurabh, and I put in my UPI pin. Okay. Now what basically bank does, the primary job is to validate whether my account which I have, okay, with that bank or with any bank, is it a valid account or not. The second thing is they check whether the receiving end, whether the account which Saurabh has created, whether that particular account is a valid account or not. And the third part is whether me, the sender, have a sufficient amount of balance or not. What if I'm trying to send 100 rupees but I just have only 10 rupees in my account? Okay. Or what if I just have 99 rupees and not 100? Okay. So we all know that if you have insufficient balance, you will get a error that you have insufficient balance, you cannot transfer any more money, right? So this is the basic purpose of a bank. Okay. Now all looks good, that okay, this is very basic, we all know this, that okay, the account number needs to be valid, our account needs to be there in that bank, else you cannot transfer the money and everything. But this is the primary job or a primary role of a what bank does on a very basic level, to do or to make a transaction successful. Okay. Yes, there are 100 other jobs of a bank as well, but when we talk specifically about how to make a transaction successful from one person to another, this is what the least a bank does. Okay. And this is what basically the need of making a transaction successful from one person to another is. Okay. So we'll go through them once again. The account holder of a account holder who is sending needs to be valid, the receiver's account address needs to be valid, and there needs to be a sufficient balance from the sender's account so that he's actually able to send that or make that transaction. Okay. So this is the primary role of what bank does it. Okay. Now let's see how exactly bank does this particular thing, what exactly happens in the background. Okay. So let's say when you're making a transaction, when 100 rupees is being transferred from the boy to the girl, okay, what bank does is bank maintains a digital ledger. Okay. Let's assume that you are in a classroom. Okay, now in this particular classroom, there's a teacher who is actually maintaining a record of everyone who is present in the class. So what she does is every day before the class starts, she takes a roll call. Okay, and she checks whether that person is available or present in the class or not, and she marks it in her logbook, in his or her logbook, right? Your teacher marks whether you are present in the class or not, and marks you either present or absent. Okay, this is one such kind of a ledger or a logbook, okay, which is maintained in the physical world. Okay, you might be going to a society or a villa or probably a bank or something, and they would say that, dude, write your name, your phone number, something like that. Okay, so that they have to maintain that who all are coming inside the building and who are all leaving, right? Similarly, whenever transactions happen, the bank also needs to maintain a ledger of who is sending whom the money. Okay, every penny that is being transferred, every penny or any transaction, as little as possible to as high volume as possible, every transaction needs to be logged in this digital ledger. Okay, and what does this digital ledger do? It keeps a track of everyone's uh, transactions and their updated balance. Okay, so let's say if before the transaction happened, the boys account had 100 rupees and the girls account had 0 rupees. Now after that transaction is being written on that ledger, after that transaction is successfully done, the boys balance will be updated to 0 rupees and the girls would be updated to 100, right? So this is what maintaining or digital ledger really means from the bank's perspective. So bank's first essential role, a main important role, is to first validate the transaction. This is what the validation meant. Okay, whether the account, both of the account are correct or not, and whether the person has sufficient balance in his or her account to send that much amount of money. Okay, and the second part is to maintain this ledger. This ledger part is the most essential part which we're going to discuss. Okay, and this is probably the most important thing which we're going to do. Okay, so let's see how a ledger looks like. Okay, so ledger basically is a digital copy. You can imagine as a digital note, and then this digital note, every time a transaction happens, it's written into it. Okay, now this is a very basic representation. This is not how exactly a ledger looks like, but in a very basic terminology, or in a very basic understanding, when A is sending B 10 rupees, it's been written at this. Okay, D is sending F 500, F is sending rupees 20. Okay, and similarly, balances of A and B are also updated. That means that the balance whatever A had, okay, it will be deducted by 10, and the B's balance will be incremented by 10, and similarly for D, F and A. Okay, so that is how a ledger on uh, a digital ledger, which a bank maintain, looks like. It has every list of transactions which are actually done and being maintained by a bank. Okay, this ledger system or this particular ledger part is the most important aspect which we gonna revolve whole around. Okay, uh any questions or anything? Saurabh, if you're there, could you help me around if there are any questions till now?
Sure, I'll bring few on screen. So while you were talking about the money transfer, Rishabh
Mm-hmm.
asked that then NFTs also work in the same way, like in case of money transferring, is it?
Okay. Sorry. Could you repeat the question?
So Rishabh is asking, like, is the NFTs also proceed in a very similar pattern or way? The way we have seen the money transfer happens in blockchain.
Okay. So when we talk about NFTs work actually on the blockchain itself. Okay. There is no concept of NFT in a centralized system, right?
Yep.
Where when okay, I'll speak in a very contextual manner. If there is a particular image, okay, that is being stored on, and that is being stored as an NFT, and if there is a particular image which I'm just sending you, it becomes basically a copy, because if I am sending you an apple, I still have that apple and you also have that apple, right? And I cannot claim that I actually own this apple, right? But when we put it into NFT, what we do is we put up a tokenized part, okay, which is unique to me and it is actually purchased by me. Okay, so it the fundamentals of transferring remains the same. Okay, but it works on the principle of blockchain, which we probably are explain later in the part of the session, that how exactly transfer in the blockchain ecosystem happens. Okay, it does not happen with the same way how exactly it's happening in the centralized system. Okay, so when you're transferring asset, something like let's say movies or something like that, in that particular case it's a good representation. When you're sending movie in a centralized version or in a non-blockchain world, it becomes a copy. But when you're transferring an NFT, you're not actually copying it because the ownership is still with me, right? I hope that answers the question. Any more else?
Yes,
Anything
yes,
else?
yes. I think he's only asked something else, right? So if you can store a huge amount of data onto the blockchain, then why to pay for Firebase or any other database services?
Right, right. So the thing is that I guess this a bit too far fetched, but I'll still address it. Okay, that when you are building applications on blockchain, you're not actually building completely everything on blockchain. Okay, you still need services, or you still need players or part where you can actually store things on the uh, the centralized servers. Okay, because the transactions which you do on blockchain, or the operations which you do on blockchain, you need to pay for everything. So there's this concept of on chain and off chain transactions. Okay, so transaction which happens on the on chain, which actually are the logical things where which for which the blockchain solves the problem for, you have to store that on blockchain. Okay, but there are things from which the blockchain will just communicate with the external database like AWS, Firebase, and everything. And that is why you need DBs, or you need database services like these as well, so that they can communicate, so that you do not have to pay heavily for everything being stored on Ethereum or any other kind of a blockchain.
Interesting. One last question Anishka asked. She's
Mhm.
saying, why do we want to avoid having third party? Like, why is blockchain preferred than going through a bank? I think this is
Right,
an
right,
interesting
right.
question.
This is interesting. Okay, so I'll try to address this particular problem in the session itself. Okay, so probably another 5 minutes into it, we'll address a key role. I'll not generalize it as of now. I'll stick to the bank example, that why do we particularly do not need something like banks. But yeah, Anishka, if you need any more clarity on the generalized part also, that why do not need a third party in any other aspect also, because blockchains are not limited just to banks. They can democratize and they can have applications in various parts: law, legal, governance, finance, and everything else. Okay, so probably at the end of the session I can answer on the generalized level if you need. Okay,
Let's move ahead.
cool, cool. Just give me a second. Is my screen visible now?
Yeah, it is.
Cool. Okay. So till now we have understood this particular part where if you are doing a transaction online, we need a third party. That third party in our life is a bank. This bank basically have two parts: validate whether I am the right person, whether I'm having a legitimate account, whether the other person is having a legitimate account, am I having the enough balance or not, and then maintain a record of it. That's it. These are the two important aspects of making a transaction successful. Now, why do we need this particular third party in the very first case, or in the very first scenario? Because something like this should not happen. Something like this should not happen. Okay, this is why we need someone on the external end to maintain that transparency part, to maintain that trust factor, that when I'm actually sending money, someone is not actually, it is actually a transfer of ownership that is happening, rather than just the money being copied, or in the terms of money it is called double spending, because you're double spending. So now there are 200 rupees just from 100 rupees, right? So now, once you have understood this concept of how banking and everything happens on the transaction level, let's try to see how exactly, or what exactly are the problems, or what exactly the system looks like. Okay, so this kind of a system which we live in is actually called a centralized system. Okay, so what does centralized system look like? There is this topmost bank which is at least when I talk in the perspective of India, which is the Reserve Bank of India, which is RBI. Every bank has a national bank. Okay, every country has a national bank. Okay, for India, it's Reserve Bank of India. Now inside this Reserve Bank of India, there is a hierarchy. Okay, this hierarchy starts from Reserve Bank of India being at top. Then there are national, state, regional banks, and all these banks which we have account in. Okay, like I have account in State Bank of India, PNB, Kotak, so and so forth. There are hundreds of bank out there in India, and everyone have account in every other bank. Okay, so now all these bank, whichever bank you have account in, are actually probably level below the Reserve Bank of India. Now these banks which we are connected to, these are connected to third party wallet or vendors. Okay, probably 5 years back or 7 years, 5 to 7 years back, online transfer of money was not that too a big of a thing. Okay, now it's very common. That time it was way too much big. Not many people, probably only businesses used to do it, not personal level. But today we have services like Phone Pay, Google Pay, Paytm, PayPal, and so forth. So many services, so many wallets. Okay, to basically facilitate this particular thing. Okay, and online transaction has become so easy today. You just go to the app, you enter a UPI pin, and done. Okay, it's done in 15 seconds. Okay, you do not need anything else. Okay, now after the third party wallet and this particular people comes actually the users. So if I have to actually, and when these two people, the boy and the girl, are actually doing a transaction, all these middlemen are actually included in between. Okay, there's a Phone Pay or there's a PayPal or a Google Pay, that's a third party wallet. Then there is a bank which is basically in which my actual money is actually being stored. Okay, and then there's RBI which is governing all these particular things. Okay, so this is what a centralized system is. Without these parties or without these folks, I'll not be able to do a transaction. Okay, I'll not be able to send money to anyone. If a bank server is down, okay, and I cannot send the money. Okay, I'm as helpless as anyone. Okay, so this is what a centralized system looks like. So now let's look at certain problems at what the problems with banks are. And the very first and foremost problem with banks is the corruption. Okay, we all know that how corrupt probably at every level we as a country have been, or probably we as a whole world has been. Okay, but there are very few not very few, but there are few cases which are very famous. Okay, the infamous case of Vijay Mallya defrauding, the infamous case of Nirav Modi defrauding, the infamous case of PNB, and all those things happening. Okay, now if you look at the amount of, if you look at the amount of money these people actually took away. Okay, and if you really look into the story, what exactly happened, how exactly it was being the whole scam actually happened. Okay, it happened with just one particular guy being corrupt in the whole bank. Okay, now there's no problem as such with the bank, but there's a problem with who are actually working or who exactly are done. Now you cannot say that okay, we'll replace the people, will hire better people, will hire people who are actually very patriotic and all those things. Okay, corruption is deeply rooted at every level, on a human level, I will say. Okay, and this is a very huge amount of problem. Okay, so cutting out a middleman removes out the whole corruption part. Okay, removes out the whole particular part. There was this one incident. Okay, I'll not term it as a corruption, I'll not term it as any particular thing, but tell me that something like this ever happened to you or not. Okay, this was something around 3 to 4 years ago, when I was sending my friend some 900 rupees. Okay, which I had to give him back. Okay, and at that time I was using Google Pay. I went to Google Pay, I transferred the money. Okay, and to me it showed that the money is being transferred. Okay, now now my friend actually didn't receive that money on his end. Okay, and he said that, dude, send me the money. Okay, and I said that, dude, I've already transferred it to you yesterday. Okay, now what happened is that I showed him that, okay, dude, see, the Google Pay is saying that it's transferred and everything. Okay, but when checked, his account didn't reflect that amount of money. 900 rupees was not reflected, neither on his Google Pay, neither on his bank and everything. So a very Obvious thing to do was to contact customer support. I tried to contact customer support, no response, barely any particular thing. I tried to contact my bank and see what exactly happened and everything. He tried to contact his bank. Okay, I got a reply that the receiving bank's parties have a certain issues and everything and so on and so forth. Probably 15-20 days into this, we ran out of all options, okay, without no solutions to everything, okay, and probably the money which I transferred never reached to my friend, and I have to transfer it again back to him. And I was very skeptical at that point that should I use Google Pay or should I just give him cash, or how should I do that, because I didn't want again to lose that 900 rupees. Now 900 rupees is not a very big thing, okay, but the very foremost question I asked myself that if I've sent that money and it didn't reach my friend, where did it actually go? Okay. And the very obvious answer to me, at least in this particular case, is that if I am sending something, okay, and there are four people in middle to actually facilitate that particular thing, it just does not vanishes out in the thin air. Okay, someone or the other in the middle have taken that particular thing. Okay, it could be my third party wallet app, it could be my bank, it could be user's bank, the my friend's bank, or anything. Okay, or it could might be a technical glitch or a network issue through which, but ultimately or eventually I lost my 900 rupees. Okay, and at this point I started looking on the internet that whether such cases really exist where people are sending money but they're actually on the other end not receiving money. Okay, and I was very surprised to see thousands of such instances happening every day. Okay, and if you consider as low as 1 rupee also being deducted from someone's account every day without having any particular part, okay, it's a very huge scam. Okay, it's a you are basically looting out money from people. Okay, now there could be multiple reasons why this could be happening. I do not want to put it into stone that okay, this is the reason and these are the people who are actually doing it. Okay, not particularly saying that certain things happen and certain things do not. Okay, but this has been my personal experience where I've sent it and everything. If anyone has a uh, gone through something very similar or have seen someone else, please let me know in the chat. Okay, I'll try to see how exactly that could happen, that happened for you as well. Okay, but corruption as a whole is a very major issue with how exactly bank works. Okay, cases like Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya, and so many more are something as a known cases, known because these were very reputed people, these, and the amount of money which they defrauded us, other country, with was also very huge. But imagine how many people like me for which 900 rupees or probably other kind of such issues which happened on a smaller scale. Okay, but the smaller case will result into crores of money on a daily level. Okay, the next part which we come on to is the network issues. Okay, the first part is that network issues is something so common that probably if I try to order something, probably if I'm ordering something and 4 to 5 times a day, probably on Amazon, Swiggy, Zomato, I am using at different places and ordering something, probably it will more or less possible that probably one of those instances in uh, out of those 5 to 6 times I'm trying to order, one time it will say that dude, the network is down, the bank server is down, or this or that. Okay, and imagine the kind of problems or this particular thing happening to a billion people. Okay, this particular thing happening to millions of people, and this particular thing is a very huge thing. It might not look like that. Okay, uh, once you got fail you can do it another thing. Okay, but it's a very huge problem to address. And the last part which is there is the problem of hackers. Okay, there are so many people who are trying to hack, there are so many people trying to look into this particular part. If I'm not wrong, probably a year before, Paytm actually filed a complaint that a few crores of money was actually being taken out, okay, from Paytm, okay, by certain hackers. Okay, and this was people's money. Okay, now let me put it into perspective. What happened? There was some, let's say there was 1,000 rupees in total transferred from Paytm to someone else. Now this 1,000 rupees were from different people to different. Now this 1,000 rupees was a collective sum. Now this 1,000 rupees was actually being stolen by the hackers. Okay, and that 1,000 rupees which were probably gonna uh, be reaching to probably hundreds of people who were supposed to receive it. It never reached them. Okay, and this was a very big complaint which was lodged and filed by Paytm probably a year back. Okay, and it was not a 1,000 rupees thing. It was a crore of some crore, very big amount which was there. Okay, so corruption, network issues, and hackers are probably the one of the biggest problems in the banking industry today. There are another list of problems with banking. Okay, but I'll not go today. I'll not go there today. Okay, there are list of problems. I can keep going, go and go. I can take a separate session on just the problem part itself. Okay, but yeah, these are the certain aspect, or these are certain problems. These are there, and what we'll try to figure out is try to address these three specific problems, and how exactly these problems can be solved by something called as blockchain, or something called how what we have here for. Okay, so yeah, Saurabh, do we have any more questions before we move on to the blockchain part?
Sure. Let me bring some of them. Okay. I think the best part is Chad is answering to themselves. Sanket is helping
Wow,
Rishabh to
wow.
understand few things, and I think people are definitely getting some other thing. Rishabh has something, I think, but in case of
Mhm.
this centralized services, we pay to some parties. Then whom are we paying in case of blockchain? I think you picked
Okay,
this
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I'll explain this particular part once the blockchain is explained, then it will make more sense. So, Rishabh, make sure that if I miss out this particular thing, either you or Saurabh could help me again resurface this question, and I can answer it later in the session. Is that fine?
Sure, sure, sure. Let's keep moving ahead.
Okay, okay, okay. Amazing. Just a second. Yep. Cool. So we have discussed the problems of decentralized system, but we're not just here to talk about problems and bitch about them. Okay, we're gonna find out real solutions. We're gonna find out and fight these particular issues. Okay, at real level, and let's see how exactly this particular thing happens. Okay, but before that, we need to understand few things in a very fundamental level. Okay, so can anybody tell me what actually happens when a transaction is done? Saurabh, if you could help me if there are any particular answers, would be helpful.
Sure,
But yeah,
I'll let you know.
yeah, what actually happens? I'm waiting for a 30 seconds or probably a minute, or probably 30 seconds if anyone answers this. What actually happens when a transaction is done? Can anyone tell me what actually happens? Anyone? What actually happens? Nope.
No, just wait for a few seconds.
Okay, okay. What actually happens? Saurabh, you can remove that comment from the
I
screen
did,
because
I did, I did. Rishabh is saying the state of blockchain changes.
the state of blockchain. Okay, we're not talking about blockchain right now. So yeah, I'm just talking here about a transaction in a centralized part. Okay, what exactly happens when a transaction is done? Let's see.
So you're
Okay,
trying to say when I send you something via phone pay or I send you something via PayPal,
yeah,
what
yeah,
happens when the transaction is done?
yeah. So let me give out the answer. Okay, so when you actually transfer, when a transfer is actually happening, let's say I'm sending 100 rupees to Saurabh, a entry in the ledger happens. Remember, there are two things which a bank does. First is the validation. The second thing is the entry in the ledger. Now, this entry in that digital
Dude.
ledger,
Sorry to stop you, but yeah, I think before you just said that, Joseph added change in ledger happens. Sanket added money gets deducted from sender and added to receiver, right? Vishwas says checking if account is valid or not, verifying if sufficient amount is there, and logs are returned, right? And
amazing, amazing.
Anishka says the senders debit money to the receiver. Himanshu says the amount is deducted from the sender part and added to the receiver's account, means the double entry is happened.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I guess all the folks are quite interactive and learning, at least from the answers I can see. So yeah, I guess the fundamental answer we were looking out for is not the debit and the credit thing, but about the folks who said that there's a entry in the ledger, because that is what we are interested in. Because at this point, the person or the people who are controlling that ledger, okay, are the banks, okay, and this ledger is something which actually makes a transaction successful, okay. Validation and verification can be done by any third party, but how do we take control of that ledger which actually says, or which actually have all the records, because that ledger is the proof that the transaction has happened. That ledger which your teacher maintains is the proof whether you were present or absent in the class, okay. Similarly, that ledger is the proof whether that transaction is done or not, by whom, to whom that transaction is done, and for how much amount of money that was being done, okay. So the question comes is that, what if we can get hold of this ledger and we can maintain it, okay. How can we maintain this particular ledger by our own? Because right now we cannot say, or right now the RBI has that access, or the banks has that access, okay. We do not get that access to maintain that money or to maintain that ledger on our own, okay. And the answer to this is in a very simple or a one way thing, is the blockchain, okay. That blockchain is the part where exactly this particular thing actually happens. But how exactly can we take that control is what we're going to learn today, or what we're going to see today in the next half of this session, okay. So let's see, imagine this particular scenario, okay. In the first scenario, when we started with two folks actually transferring one from one person to another, okay. But imagine we are in a group of people in a network. These 8 people are in this network, and there are certain rules of this network. Okay, what the rules of this network says is that you can check each other's account balance. Okay, all of the people can see each other's account balance. Okay, so let's say me, Saurabh, and you all folks who are in this YouTube live, we are all in this network, and I can actually see your transactions and I can see actually your balances. That is not something possible in today's scenario. I cannot see how much account or how much money Saurabh's bank account has right now, okay, or what all transaction he has done, okay. All of that is hidden, all of that is private, it is not a public info. Now all of this is something visible only to the people in the network, okay. So if Saurabh is in not network, I will not be able to see his balance or transactions or anything, okay. If Saurabh is in the network, I can see his and everyone else account address, all the transaction he or she has done, and the updated balance. And similarly, everyone in the network can see my transactions and updated balance. And the second rule that is that your identity is not revealed, okay. So there are anonymous people who are joined with pseudonym or probably with an address, okay. Just like we have account address, okay, in the world of blockchain we have a public address, or we have an address which is basically denoted to everyone, okay. Your real identity is not being revealed, okay. You're not as Saurabh, or you're not as Rinkesh in that network, you're not as a Sanket in that network, okay. You're just an identity, depending on what your wallet address is. That's all you can basically know about that particular person, okay. So these are the two preconditions of our world, of our new world which we are getting into. These 8 group are voluntarily being part of this new world, and they're trying to be a part of this, and they're trying to do a transaction in this, okay. So we'll go through the rules again. You can check each other's account transactions, that what all transaction has been done, and the balance which needs to be the balance which is there on the updated level. And you cannot your identity is basically not revealed, so no one can know what your name is, where you live, what your city is, and everything, okay. Your identity is not revealed, you're just labeled as one particular person, like as an address, okay, nothing more than that. So now let's try to do a transaction. We did a transaction in the centralized system where the boy was sending the girl some money. Now let's try to do a transaction, okay, but in this particular world, okay. So in this particular world, imagine that this girl is now transferring this boy the BTC. BTC is Bitcoin, or probably any coin you can imagine, okay, any cryptocurrency you can imagine, okay. So now this girl is sending or transferring this particular boy this one BTC. Okay, now we all know the fundamentals that how exactly a transfer needs to happen. There were two fundamentals that were there. First is the validation part. Second thing is writing that particular in this particular ledger, right? Making a recording. Okay, so let's see in the world of blockchain where we do not have bank. Okay, remember when we are doing transactions, okay, previously we needed bank to do this transaction. The bank was facilitating this transaction, but here we do not have a bank. We do not have any third party at all. Okay, so how do we do this transaction? Sorry, how do we do this transaction is that when someone basically says in the network, this boy or this girl says that, hey, I want to send this guy or this boy this amount of BTC or this amount of money, what everyone does is that everyone gets a notification and everyone checks whether every person in the network checks whether the person who is sending the account sending the amount of that particular account holder, whether that is a proper legitimate account, whether it's a valid account holder or not, whether the receiver address or the receiving account is a valid one or not, and whether the sender is having sufficient balance or not. So now what happened is the validation that was done before by a bank, okay, is now done by a group of people. Let me put it into perspective of that class example which I said. Okay, imagine that instead of your teacher actually making this particular roll call, okay, everyone in the class checks whether I am present or not. Okay, and everyone checks, not just the teacher, or we removed out the dependency from the teacher. Okay, because teacher can have a grudge against me, and even though if I'm present she might mark me absent. Okay, or if I would have gone out for 5 minutes, she would have said that, dude, you are out for 5 minutes, so you're not allowed, and I'll be marking you absent. Okay, we all have gone through this. Okay, teachers marking us absent without us being present, without uh, our part. Okay, even though we are present in the class. Okay, so what do? We remove out the teacher, we remove out the dependency, that dude, you'll not mark us absent or present. The class will do it democratically. Okay, and what everyone does is when everyone in the class checks whether I am present, the next guy after me is present and everything, and they validate that particular thing. Okay, so this is the first step of two step process which makes the transaction successful. Okay, so now after this particular thing happens, okay, what everyone does is that, remember the bank had a digital ledger maintained. Here everyone maintains a digital ledger of their own, and whenever someone says that, okay, this account is valid for transfer and has sufficient balance, they write it in their own ledger. Everyone have their own digital ledger. So putting into perspective of the classroom example, everyone have a ledger of their own. Okay, and everyone will write in their logbook that Rinkesh is present. If someone is absent, everyone will write absent. Okay, everyone. So instead of one teacher maintaining one ledger, we are maintaining everyone's having a ledger of their own, and the majority of people who say that, okay, these all are present, that particular thing is actually termed, that particular thing is actually said that, okay, these students are present and these are absent. Okay, so it's a democratic way of marking someone present and absent. Similarly, where here what we're doing is when someone is doing a transaction, all the people in the network, all the people in the group are checking whether the transactions is a valid one, whether the balance is a valid one or not. And if so, they write it in their own their own ledger. Okay, and to make a transaction successful in a network like ours, we need more than 51% of people to agreeing that. If more than 51% of people say that yes, this transaction is valid, and they write it in their ledger, the transaction is termed or the transaction is successful. So what we did here is that we did a transaction without a third party, without a middleman, without a bank needing someone. Okay, so with people whom we do not know also, but they have an incentive to basically verify, validate, and do this transaction for us. Okay, so this is how a transaction in a blockchain world in a very simplistic manner happens. Okay, so when you send one BTC, if I am sending one BTC from my end to Saurav's end, there are people who are called as miners. Okay, these miners are actually the validators or verifiers. Okay, what these miners actually do is that they check all these preconditions. Okay, and if that is there, it is being maintained by them, and they maintain a ledger which basically updates all these records. Okay, so what happens is now A send B 1 BTC. Everyone maintains and have a copy of the ledger and is being updated. Now, to put into perspective, why this is a better system, let's say in the classroom example, if I am absent, but Saurabh and few of my two other friends, okay, I said that, dude, get my proxy and get me also mark present. Okay, this is a very important class and I do not want to get absent. Okay, so what Saurabh will do is Saurabh will write in his ledger for against me as present, and the two of my friends will also write present, but the rest of the class will still write absent for me because they are actually not corrupted, they are actually not those really good friends to actually write apps present for me. So what do we need is here is that to get a particular decision being made, you need to have 51% power in the game. Okay, power in that network. Okay, so out of, let's say, 20 people, only 3 people say that Rinkesh is present, but 17 other people are saying that Rinkesh is absent. Since the majority, since more than 50%, 51% of people are saying that Rinkesh is absent, Saurabh and the other two friends, the 3 friends, entry will basically be cancelled out, will not be considered, and their entry will also be updated as Rinkesh is absent. Okay, similarly, that is what happens in a Bitcoin world or in a world of blockchain, that since it is decentralized, since it is not controlled by someone, even if 1%, 2%, or even if a small percent of people are trying to corrupt the system, it will not be able to, because the majority, the consensus, or the 51% of the people are actually not agreeing with that. Okay, the same goes with the other way around. Okay, if I am able to convince 51% of the people, let's say if I'm able to convince 11 people in my class that even though if I'm not present, mark me present. Okay, I'll say that, dude, I'll give you treat after a day, get me present, and if you get me the present, if you get me mark present, I'll give you a treat early later. Okay, and if 11 people actually fall into that prey, okay, and everyone writes, now 51, now 11 people out of those 20 have marked me present, even if I'm not actually there in the class. Okay, but I actually, but since 51 or more than 51% of people have actually marked me present, I will be marked as present. Now this particular thing looks very, very easy to actually hack, since we're just talking about 20 people. Okay, but imagine in a world of Bitcoin, imagine the world of Ethereum, where millions of people who do not even know each other, who do not have even have no interaction, no address, no particular way of interacting with each other, you can't corrupt and get your way through the 51% part. Okay, so that is why, since blockchain is decentralized and no one particular party is involved in it, you can't corrupt it, you can't hack it. Okay, there's this there's this beautiful line which defines this whole part, is that Bitcoin is not impossible to hack, but it is expensive to hack, because the amount of time, energy, money which you probably will need to hack Bitcoin, okay, it will be way too much. And in the end, even if you're able to basically hack into Bitcoin, you lose out so much of amount money and anything, but you will not able to get anything out of it. Okay, so this is how the world of blockchain really looks like. Okay, the process of this validation, verification, everything is called mining. Okay, so when I talk in the perspective of Bitcoin, whenever a block is mined, whenever a block is updated to the blockchain, okay, a new Bitcoin is being mined. Okay, and this particular Bitcoin or this particular thing is being new Bitcoins are being mined. Now when I talk from the perspective of miners, okay, the miners need to solve a tough mathematical puzzle to actually solve this particular, to validate and verify. Okay, so that there is a neutrality maintained in the system. Now those are very too technical topics to discuss. Okay, we'll not get into how proof of work, how mining, and how exactly all those things work in the detailed manner. But this is how the world of blockchain removes out the dependency on a middleman, and this is how a community led or a network led or a decentralized led transactions in Bitcoin actually happens, or in blockchain really happens. Okay, and yeah, this is what how exactly transaction, this is how exactly those things happens. Okay, now coming to the part of the three problems which we addressed. Okay, the corruption part. Uh, since blockchain or cryptocurrencies, okay, are digital money, okay, you do not need an involvement. Okay, Bitcoin is not a company or something like that. Okay, Bitcoin is not run by a particular person, okay, or anything. So you can't corrupt Bitcoin because there's no person handling it. Okay, so you can't corrupt it. Okay, so it's very difficult to corrupt math. Okay, Bitcoin runs on math and code. Okay, so you cannot corrupt math. Okay, you can corrupt a human being. Second thing is network issues. Okay, over the period of time, okay, to basically bring down Bitcoin, you have to bring down internet. Okay, that's the easy way to answer it. Okay, so unless and until there's an internet working all around the world, that's there. Okay, to give you a perspective, let's say in a very unimaginable case, if there's a grid failure in India, what does grid failure means? That the whole country of India is in blackout. Okay, if we are depending on banks and everything, billions and billions of amount of money losses will be there, even if banks are actually shutting down for let's say 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever amount of time that grid failure is. But something like Bitcoin runs 24 hours, 365 days, does not stop for anyone. Okay, and is always live and always up. Okay, and the third part was hacker. Like I've said this before, Bitcoin is not impossible to hack, but is expensive to hack. So most people have, like many people have tried and failed and done that. But the kind of way, not just Bitcoin, but the way blockchains are implemented, it almost becomes very next to impossible or practically impossible to actually hack into any of those blockchains and make it possible, unless and until they're actually coded with certain security flaws and everything. Okay, so yeah, Saurabh, do we have questions here? I guess we have explained a fair chunk of how exactly
Yes.
blockchain works.
Anishka is trying to. There are a lot of things. Just let me bring in few. Right. Anishka said, "Are miners real people, or it's actually a large computer network?"
Yes, miners are real people, but these miners are actually people uh, who run computational programs. Okay, so I guess Saurabh, I'll put up a link of how mining actually works in Chinese, sorry, not Chinese, mining farms actually work and everything. Okay.
But I think it's going in a very similar direction where a lot of mining farms are established in China, and that's why that
Yeah,
keyword
yeah, yeah.
also figured.
Yeah, but exactly.
No,
So,
but
but
it's
I
not
guess
Chinese. It's mining farms.
yeah, not Chinese farms, mining farms. Okay, so what happens is that these miners are like I'll give you a perspective. If you're a miner, you need to good with certain part, you need to be good with knowing how exactly computer works on a very fundamental level. You need to good with concepts of cryptography, you need to good with the concept of how exactly blockchain works, and various other parts. And again, it's a very expensive thing on that particular part. But yes, miners are real people, but they need huge amount of computational and computer powers to actually do this mining part. uh,
Yes. Yes, dude. I think let's take this as a last question. Why do we need different types of coins like Bitcoin and
Yes,
Ethereum?
this is interesting. So, uh, when if you see the Bitcoin white paper, that is the Bitcoin papers when it was original published out, it says peer-to-peer digital cash. Okay, digital cash, peer-to-peer digital cash. When I said that in the previous session, in the start of the session, when we do a physical transfer of money, we do not need intermediate. Same thing replicated by Bitcoin, where you do not need an intermediate, and you're actually making a peer-to-peer, a person-to-person, okay, a transfer. But BTC or Bitcoin solved just one particular part of this whole thing. What a blockchain could enable is that of a is that of a payment. Okay, but let's say today I want to purchase land in America. I need a middleman. Today I want to make a certain governing rules, governing body, and everything. There is a government in between. If I want to use WhatsApp, Facebook, this particular thing, if there is a social media platform, there's just one party or one particular company handling everything. Okay, so if you see at every places there are different ecosystem, or there are different centralized parties. Okay, Bitcoin just solved that particular problem for one ecosystem, that was of payment. Okay, that was for money which we individually look at. Ethereum solves it for various places where on the top of Ethereum we can actually build applications. So as a developer, you can go and build a decentralized lending platform, decentralized governance system, decentralized this, decentralized that. These are more infamous, known as dApps, decentralized applications. Okay, so yeah, that is what the need. Every other coin or every other blockchain platform has its own specific need. Okay, but again, not every platform or not every coins are actually good ones as well. Okay, that's also a differentiating factor. Okay.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'll also do a small thing. Okay, so for
Mm-hmm.
everyone who's wanting to learn or self-learn, start self-learning blockchain, we're definitely coming with our own dashboard. But so far, we've been taking a lot of live classes. But you can definitely go to the link that is up on the screen, and you can find plenty of curated resources that will help you kickstart your basics of blockchain journey. But I think we're coming to the end of the session, Rinkesh. Uh,
Yeah.
Now people are moving towards the introductory to the Ethereum scene. But before that, I'll also do something, right? I'll add you to the official Discord of Uncryptd, and if people have queries, people can keep asking you there, and
Sure.
in that particular fashion, they'll be moving ahead and pursuing all those tasks and activities. But
Yes.
before coming to an end, okay, I saw an interesting question in chat, and I think we should answer that before we leave. He's trying to ask, how do you convert between two currencies if there are two different blockchains?
Right.
There's
So
two on this.
I guess this is a fairly, like, just like you have an exchange for, let's say, from rupees to dollar, from dollar to yen or anything. Okay, there are a lot of centralized as well as decentralized platforms to do that. I guess you might be, or a lot of folks would be knowing platforms like WazirX, Binance, CoinD6, and all those things. These exchange, you can convert your fiat into any cryptocurrency, that cryptocurrency into any other cryptocurrency as well. But there are decentralized exchange also, exchanges which are not controlled by a one singular party. The one of the most famous one is a Uniswap, where you can swap your one cryptocurrency to another. Okay, and that Uniswap is actually built on Ethereum. Okay, so yeah, this is how you can basically transact or exchange different kind of coins in the decentralized world.
It is, and I think Uniswap is comfortable, SushiSwap is comfortable,
Yes.
and these platforms are actually making it mainstream when it comes to swapping, right? But I think we
Yeah.
were more centric towards the understanding of blockchain. Just
Hmm.
people write in chat if you are comfortable with the basic understanding of blockchain, whatever Inke has been teaching for past 1.5 hours. If you can write in chat if it was a good session, decent session, your feedback is highly appreciated. Tomorrow we are coming up with introduction to Ethereum. And Rishabh, as you asked, any courses on Ethereum blockchain decentralized apps? The best thing I'll do is I'll add Rinkesh to the Discord channel of Uncryptd, and he will help you with resources and courses there. And also, we'll be conducting a pilot for our dashboard. We'll be launching an exclusive bootcamp that we conducted live in a form of testing for our beta testers. So maybe we can bring you all there, and you can grab that for free and also review or feedback us with the dashboard. I think that is it. Rinkesh, any ending thoughts for the people so that then I can come to the ending deadlines of the Uncryptd and all of that, and we wind up the session. Any ending thoughts?
Uh, I guess a good ending note on my end would be, if you're someone who is getting started in the blockchain, if probably this was the first time you ever had a session or heard about blockchain, learned about blockchain, try to be as involved in the ecosystem. And one thing which I want to make clear is that you do not always have to become a developer to just be a part of the blockchain ecosystem. My 2 cents would be to stick with the ecosystem. uh, if either you're making the career, either you're not, and whatever, okay, try to be in this particular ecosystem for as long as possible, because this is going to be the future. Saurabh, you're on mute.
Oh, my bad. 1 second. I wanted to bring few things up before we wind up the session, right? So the round one
Mhm.
of Uncrypted is already live. It is released on
Mhm.
5th of July. But the deadline is 8th of August. We have kept a fairly good amount of timeline for the people to perceive all the tasks and
Mhm.
also learn the basics if you're lagging there. The
Mhm.
best part is everybody gonna be incentivized, but top few people gonna be incentivized a bit more, because there's definitely one step benefit to the people who are actually more active and who are actually perceiving things on more scale. But I think the team is doing a great stuff. We know Robin and all the other folks, and I think
Yes.
Rinkesh, let's keep communicating more on the Discord channel. Thank you so much for making out and taking out time to actually coming here and helping us to understand basics of blockchain.
Definitely,
And,
definitely.
and glad to be your host, man. And it's been
Mhm.
forever that I've
Thank
been playing the part of your host. So
Sure
it's
thing, sure thing.
wonderful. A couple of appreciations for you, man. I can see in chat. Rishabh said, expecting more sessions like this. Anishka said, thanks. It was a great session and very informative. Krishna said, great session. Uh, Sai said, hey, just add on to Saksham's question that I've already told. I'll bring Rinkesh to the Discord. And as soon as he find time, he'll suggest you a few getting started courses that are obviously free. And I think he was asked to stun and not the tools. Okay, yeah, obviously we're gonna bring in some sort of courses, and that was we were talking about. But Rinkesh, I think let's wind it up and have a great weekend ahead. It's Friday already. With
Sure thing,
Uncrypted,
sure thing.
stay tuned on their across social handles. Their Twitter is Uncrypted. Their LinkedIn is Uncrypted. Their Discord is Uncrypted. So just go and chase their social handles to chase all the deadlines. Thanks for such a great audience. We had great time hosting you all. Bye bye.
Bye.